Welcome to Pen and Perspective, where the story always knows more than it's telling. Every word is intentional. Every silence holds a truth. Let's get into it. The one who walked away. Most stories about families like theirs start with the golden child, but this one starts with the one who refused to play the role. Tyler was 22 the night he left his parents' house for the last time. Old enough to have a degree he never wanted, young enough to still hope his parents would see him for who he was instead of who they wanted him to be. He'd spent 4 years doing everything right. The school they chose, the major they approved, the internships they decided made the family look good. Every accomplishment polished to a shine and held up like a trophy that belonged more to them than to him. But the truth was simple. He wasn't being raised. He was being molded. Tyler had always been the kind of young man who made spaces feel softer. He liked working with his hands, listening more than speaking, building things that mattered to people who didn't usually get listened to. Nothing glamorous, nothing loud, but everything that made him feel like himself. His parents called it a waste of potential. They said it privately, behind closed doors, and then praised him publicly anytime a neighbor mentioned how promising he was. That duality, pride in public, pressure in private, was the quiet rhythm of his childhood. When he graduated, his parents assumed the next steps were obvious. Grad school, a top program, something prestigious, something expensive, something they could brag about. Tyler assumed the next steps were finally his, and that's when everything broke. The fight didn't start that night. It started the moment he hinted he might want something different for his life. That moment grew into weeks, then months, then a house full of tension so thick that even Taylor, 15 and absorbing everything, felt it in her bones. The night he left, he didn't slam a door, he didn't scream, he didn't curse them out. He slipped a note under Taylor's bedroom door. You and me don't ever stop being siblings. Here's where you can reach me. That note is the reason she crept down the stairs. That note is the reason she heard the last conversation between her brother and her parents, the one that carved a fault line through their family forever. She heard her mother tell him he'd never make it without them. She heard her father say that if he walked out, he'd walk out of every privilege their name provided. She heard phrases like, "You're throwing your future away. This family expects more. If you choose this path, you're choosing it alone." And she heard the one sentence that stayed with her for years. I can't be who you want. He wasn't dramatic when he left, just done. A bag over his shoulder, a tired look on his face, a soft glance up the stairs to where Taylor stood hidden, watching. He didn't look back. For a while, nobody knew where he went. Not his parents, not the extended family. The narrative they told the world was safe, polished. He needed time to find himself. He chose an unconventional path. He'll be back. But the truth was sitting in a friend's garage, sleeping on a borrowed air mattress. And the person who found him there wasn't a parent trying to apologize. It was Marcus. Older than the friend group, younger than their parents, always hovering at the fringes of every important moment. Watching, assessing, calculating. He sat on the edge of the garage doorway and said one sentence that shifted the entire trajectory of Tyler's life. You don't have to go back. Tyler didn't ask how Marcus knew where he was. Marcus didn't offer an explanation. He just made a call. One call. And that call sent Tyler to the Vegas outskirts, to someone who owed Marcus a favor, someone who could give Tyler work in the field he actually loved. The kind of work that built communities, restored things, made people feel human. The kind of work that made him whole. He left at 22 with nothing but a backpack and a phone number. He rebuilt a life with purpose, community, a wife who believed in him, and children who knew the sound of his laughter but not the sting of his parents' disapproval. Taylor grew up with him from afar. Walter and Sandra checked in. The friend group flew to Vegas for his wedding because Taylor asked them to, and his parents never knew any of it. He didn't answer their calls. He didn't respond to the emails. He didn't lie about them. He simply removed them from the story, and now, after nearly 2 decades, he is coming home. Not to return, not to reconcile, not to prove anything. He is coming because his sister is alone in a storm she created and a system that will eat her alive if she has no one sitting behind her in court. He won't excuse what she did. He won't shield her from consequences. But he will sit in the room so she is not swallowed whole. Because he meant what he wrote in that note at 15. You and me don't ever stop being siblings. And now the city that pushed him out will see him again. Not as a failure, not as a question mark, but as a man who built something real in a place where nobody expected him to survive. This is the story of the one who walked away, and why coming back doesn't mean returning home. Update 1. It had been 5 years since I walked out of my parents' house with a backbone that was finally mine. 5 years since I stopped trying to fold myself into the shape they preferred. 5 years since I stopped being their project. And those 5 years had rebuilt me. Vegas wasn't where I expected to land, but it became the first place I ever felt like I could inhale fully. Marcus sent me here, not with promises, just with a quiet, steady, "You're not done yet." The kind of lifeline that doesn't need explanation. A friend of his had a contract opening with a youth development nonprofit. Entry-level, but meaningful. Hands-on work, mentoring, building spaces, helping kids see themselves the way I once needed someone to see me. I could breathe in that work. I could disappear into it. And for the first time, disappearing didn't mean shrinking. It meant growing. I rented an apartment outside Summerlin. Quiet, sunlight everywhere, enough room to stop feeling like I was temporary. Enough room to figure out who I was without a spotlight watching every move. And the thing is, I didn't do it alone, not really. Taylor called often. Not every day, not in a smothering way. Just enough to remind me she wasn't choosing them over me. Enough to make me feel anchored. Sometimes she talked about school. Sometimes I could hear her trying to hide something in her voice, and I didn't push. She was navigating the same parents I had walked away from, only from a different angle. The friend group took me in like I hadn't missed a beat. Sandra sent recipes. Walter checked in with "you good" texts at random hours. T. Greaves called every few months to talk shit and make sure I was working smarter and not harder. Kiara put me on to every new restaurant opening because she said, even long distance, you not allowed to lose your taste buds. They didn't replace what I lost, but they did make sure the absence didn't swallow me. That was the foundation I was standing on a year after I got to Summerlin, when I met her, the woman who would become my wife. She wasn't impressed by degrees or resumes or perfect sons. She liked how I listened. She liked that I wasn't trying to be anything but present, and she made space for me in a way that didn't feel conditional. The following year, I proposed at a community garden I helped restore. Simple ring. Quiet, yes. A moment that felt like choosing my life all over again. And the wedding? It was proof of what I had built. Because every face that mattered was there, not just my new friends. Walter, Sandra, T. Greaves, Kiara, Marcus, standing in the back with that "I told you you'd make it" nod. And Taylor, front row, beaming. She already knew my fiancé well, loved her, honestly. They talked, visited, checked in, laughed together. By the time the wedding came, she wasn't meeting anyone new. She was celebrating the family she chose. She cried through my vows, and I pretended not to see it because calling her out would have made her cry harder. But afterward, she hugged me and whispered that she was proud of me. And I held on to that. Because she saw all the parts of me that my parents refused to look at. The birth of my daughter 2 years later brought them all back again. The group, the noise, the laughter, the teasing about my ugly dad's shoes. Taylor held my baby like she'd been waiting for her. Sandra said she had my eyes. Walter bought us enough diapers to last 6 months. My life was finally exactly what I wanted and needed it to be, and for that I'm grateful. It had been 10 years, and life had become extremely regular, not boring, just steady, predictable in the best ways. I was 37, married almost a decade, 2 kids deep, living outside Summerlin in a house I never thought I'd be able to afford when I walked out of my parents' door at 22. Mornings were loud and soft at the same time. My daughter yelling that my son stole her charger, my son insisting he borrowed it, my wife moving through the kitchen like a quiet storm, coffee in one hand, planner in the other, me packing lunches, checking my email, answering texts from the staff at the youth center. The first nonprofit had turned into a network. What started as one program Marcus slid me into had grown into 3 pillars. A nonprofit that helps system-impacted young adults get real work, not just experience. A youth center that became a second home for kids whose parents work late. And now, the thing I was getting ready to break ground on. A community tech hub, laptops, mentorship, real skills, not just keep them off the streets busy work. I still did a little bit of everything. Grant meetings, budget calls, showing up on weekends when the toilet in the boys' bathroom wouldn't stop running, picking up pizza, talking to that one kid who always wasn't mad while clearly being mad. My wife ran logistics and partnerships like she was born for it. The kids saw flyers with my face on them sometimes. But inside the house, I was just dad. The person who knew exactly where every random charger in the house was, who could fix the Wi-Fi and cut mangoes the way they liked. Some nights, after everyone went to bed, I'd step out on the back patio, look out at the lights in the distance and think, I really built this life, away from them, away from my parents, away from their curated perfection and silent punishments, away from the version of me they needed instead of the one I actually was. They still emailed sometimes, holidays, birthdays, polite, polished paragraphs that sounded like annual reports more than apologies. I never blocked them. I just didn't respond. Taylor, though, they came to Vegas for the wedding. They came back when my daughter was born. Came again when my son showed up and decided sleep was optional. My wife knew all their faces, all their stories, knew which one was going to start the mess in the group chat and which one was going to mediate it. Update 2. Life was built on that kind of regular, routine but full, predictable but never empty. So when my phone rang that Tuesday night and Marcus's name slid across the screen, I almost ignored it. Marcus doesn't call for small things. He texts, he emails, he sends other people. But a direct call from him, after 9 p.m. I stepped out on the back patio, door cracked so I could still hear my wife talking to the kids in the living room. Tyler, he said. No preamble, no warm-up, just my name, low and serious. Yeah, I'm here. There was a pause heavy enough to make my stomach tighten. Your sister might be into something, he said. Something real. The words landed like a weight I hadn't expected to pick up again. He didn't give details. That's not how Marcus works. He sketched around edges, mentioned a barber shop, mentioned some city paperwork, mentioned Walter's name, and then shut it down before I could press too hard. I don't have the full picture yet, he said. But if this goes where I think it might, you need to start wrapping your mind around the idea that Taylor's not just adjacent. She's in it. When we hung up, I just stood there for a second, phone still to my ear, desert air pressing against my skin. My wife slid the door open. You good? She asked. No drama, just straight to the point. I nodded once, then shook my head. Marcus called. She stepped out with me, closed the door behind us. "What's going on?" I told her what I knew, the little Marcus gave me, the things he implied without saying, the names he said out loud, and the ones he didn't have to because we both knew who sat at the center of that friend group. She listened the way she always does, arms folded, eyes focused, no interruptions, no "I told you so" or "what does that mean?" Just presence. "And Taylor?" she asked when I finished. "What did he say about her?" "He said she might be in it," I answered. "Not just near it, in it." We stood there in silence for a while. Then she said, "Okay, so what does showing up look like for you? Not for your parents. Not for the version of you they try to build, for you." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I know I'm not about to watch my sister drown from another state if there's anything I can do besides throw judgment from the sidelines." She nodded slowly. "You're not going to fix it for her," she said. "You can't. But if you feel like you're supposed to be there, be there. We'll adjust. The kids will understand. You're that kind of brother. Just make sure you can live with what you do and what you don't do." That's the thing about being loved, right? It doesn't absolve you. It just gives you a clear mirror. I thought I had time. Time to see how bad it really was. Time to see if maybe Marcus was wrong. Time to let the mess shake out before deciding if I needed to step into it. Then the next days played out horribly. Bits and pieces hit my phone through Taylor, through Marcus. Every update made the air feel thinner. I kept thinking, okay, this has to be the peak. It can't get worse than this. Then Kendall dropped the expose. My wife found it first. Sent me the link with no text, just 3 dots after my name. I sat at my desk in the home office, scrolling through line after line, pictures, timelines, names blurred, names implied, names left out that were loud in their absence. It didn't spell everything out. But if you know the players, you know who's sitting where on the board. Taylor wasn't named, but she was there, in the gaps, in the phrasing, in the way a trusted administrator kept showing up in places I knew she touched. 2 days after Kendall's piece went up, Dante got picked up. "She's going to get charged," my wife said. "It's not a question of if, it's when." "I know," I said. "I need to go." She didn't argue. She just said, "Okay, let's make sure the kids understand why." We sat them down, told them their auntie was in trouble, grown-up trouble, and Dad needed to be there. My daughter asked, "Did she do something bad?" I thought about that question longer than she expected. "She made some really bad choices," I said finally, "and now she has to deal with what came with them. But even when people do something wrong, sometimes they still need somebody to sit next to them while they face it." My son nodded like that made sense. Kids get fairness better than most adults. I booked my ticket after that. The night I flew in, we met at Harold and Bell's. The moment I walked through the doors, the smell alone almost knocked me out. Gumbo, fried catfish, that specific LA hum. People talking over each other, somebody laughing too loud, the clink of glasses. The TV at the bar playing a game nobody was really watching. They were already there when I arrived. Walter, Sandra, Kiara, T. Greaves, Ayla. Faces older than the last time we were all in the same room together, but still the same eyes. There were hugs, some tight, some a little awkward, some with that extra second that says, "We've been through too much not to hold on a little longer." We ordered food, joked a little, let the normalcy sit between us before we touched the heavy thing on the table. Eventually, Kiara leaned back and said, "So, you here for her?" It wasn't a challenge, just a fact. "I'm here so she has somebody who can look at her and remember she's human, while she answers for all of this shit she got herself in," I said. I'm not here to run interference or ask y'all to be okay. Ayla nodded, jaw tight. She's not welcome in my space, Ayla said plainly. But I respect for you for being there for your sister. Just don't ask me to speak to her. I won't, I said. Sandra wiped at the corner of her eye and didn't apologize for it. Can you just... She started, then stopped. Tried again. If she says anything about us in there, anything wild, don't let it stand. I don't want her rewriting the story in her head with you as the only witness. I won't, I told her. I love her, but I'm not here to help her lie to herself. Won't help her anyway. We were leaving Harold and Bill's, the night heavy with food, voices, and all the things that still feel familiar even when you don't. I said my goodbyes, took my time getting to the car. Halfway there, something made me stop. She stood across the street, red Ralph's polo, black work pants, name tag that said El Monroe. Her braids were pulled back clean, professional, like she'd just come from work, like she had somewhere else to be that mattered. Our eyes met, and something flickered. Not recognition per se, more like the sense that we'd crossed paths before in a life I didn't stay long enough to understand. Her expression didn't change, no judgment, no warmth, just awareness. A car passed between us, headlights cutting the street in half. I blinked. She wasn't there anymore. I stood there longer than I meant to, then unlocked the car and got in, the feeling settling into me quiet and heavy. Some people don't follow you. They just remind you that leaving doesn't erase what saw you on the way out. The next morning, Taylor was arrested. I went to see my sister. Marcus had made the call already. He'd cleared whatever needed to be cleared so I could get in before visiting hours got flooded and before my parents could pull whatever strings they thought they still had. Sitting in that little room, plastic chair, plastic table, everything hard and echoing, was surreal. I'd sat with young men in similar rooms in Vegas. But this was different. This was Taylor. When the door opened and she walked in, my chest tightened. She looked rough, not in a smaller, fragile way, in a real way. Edges dulled, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept right in weeks. Jumpsuit hanging off her in places her tailored clothes never would have allowed. She froze when she saw me. "Tyler," she whispered, like saying my name too loud might make me vanish. I leaned back a little, looked her up and down on purpose. "Girl, you look like you've been trying to avoid the top dog on the yard," I said, shaking my head. For a second she just stared. Then this ugly, beautiful laugh broke out of her. Sharp, wet, half sobbing, half snorting. "Shut up," she muttered, wiping at her face with the back of her hand. "You stupid." "But you laughing, though," I said, so clearly I still got it. The tension in the room shifted just a little. Not gone, not even close, but cracked enough for us to breathe. She sank into the chair across from me, hands flat on the table like she was bracing against a wave. "You shouldn't have come," she said quietly. I looked at her and said, "Tay, you don't get to blow up half the city and then tell me where the fuck I can go." Her eyes filled again. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she said. "I swear to God I didn't. I wasn't trying to ruin anybody's life." "I know you didn't mean to," I said. "But meaning and impact are two different things. You of all people should know that now." She winced. Didn't argue. For the next however long they gave us, we talked. I asked questions, real ones, not the soft kind. I asked her what she knew and when she knew it. I asked her when the money stopped feeling clean. I asked her how many times she told herself this isn't that bad, just so she could sleep. She answered some of it, dodged some of it, cried, got defensive, cried again. Tried to explain our parents' involvement. Tried to explain Dante. Tried to explain the version of herself she'd been performing for so long, She didn't know how to step out of costume. And every time she slipped into, "I'm not as bad as," or at least I didn't, I shut it down. "Taylor," I said at one point, leaning forward, "you don't have to convince me you're a good person. I've seen you be one. But you are also a person who did something really bad. Those things can both be true. The only way you get to move forward is if you stand in both truths at the same time." She looked at me like I'd just dropped a weight on the table. "I don't know how to live with that," she whispered. "Then that's what this next season is for," I said. "Learning. I'm not here to make it easier. I'm here so you don't have to learn it alone." When the guard came to tap on the door, giving us the 5-minute warning, she panicked a little. "What if they really lock me up?" she asked, voice thin. "Like, for real time? What if I don't come out?" "Then you walk into it with your eyes open," I said. "And knowing that when you stand up in that courtroom and say, 'guilty,' you're not just falling apart. You're choosing what kind of person you're going to be on the other side of it." She swallowed hard. "And you'll be here?" she asked. "I'll be where I can be," I answered honestly. "I'll come when I'm supposed to come. I'll answer when it's healthy to answer. I'm not throwing my life away for your consequences. But I'm also not abandoning you to them." Final update. By the time the sun came up on day 6, I finally understood what people meant when they said some weeks change your whole spine. Not just your plans, your posture, your understanding of what you can hold. Taylor's plea hearing was scheduled for the following week, but I knew I couldn't stay in LA that long. I had a family, a team, a building project waiting on signatures and my literal presence. But before I went home, I needed to close every circle I'd opened, even the ones I never planned to revisit. I saw Taylor one more time before I left. She looked rougher than she had that first day, torn up, stressed out, worn thin by consequences she never expected to face. But clearer, too, like denial had cracked and only truth was left standing. She sat across from me, hands fidgeting, eyes swollen but steady. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she said. "Good," I told her, "because I'm not here to fix, I'm here to stand." Her eyes filled, not with relief, with recognition. We talked about the plea, about what she understood, what she didn't, what scared her, and what scared me for her. I told her I couldn't be there the day she entered it, but we would set a schedule for calls and visits after. "I don't know what regular looks like yet," I said, "but I'm not disappearing." She nodded like she believed me, and like she needed to believe me. I walked out feeling heavy, but not burdened. Heavy like a person carrying something with intention. They asked to meet before I flew back to Vegas. Not at the house. Not anywhere soaked in history. Of course they picked Mastro's, even now. Image first. I arrived early. They arrived late. Some things don't change, even when everything else does. My father cleared his throat. "We saw the article. The work you're doing. Third venture. Years of sweat. A whole life he never asked about." "That's great, son," he said. I almost laughed. "I built all of it without you," I said. "And I'm still building without you." My mother stiffened, then offered a soft, polished, hollow apology. "We should have handled things differently back then. We didn't know how to raise a child who didn't fit the mold." I nodded slowly. "Even now, I'm still something you're trying to adjust, not accept." My father tried to step in. "We don't know how to know you're around and successful and accept silence. We don't know what to tell people when they ask about you, your wife, your family. We do know we're still your parents, and we can't imagine you'd want to cut us out forever. We're trying to move forward." "Move forward to what?" I asked. "You haven't done the backward part yet." Silence settled, thick, defensive. Then I said what I'd needed to say for 15 years. The day I left, you stopped being my parents. I tried to tell you I didn't know how to be what you wanted. You looked at me like I was broken. Now you're saying the same thing back to me and you want empathy you never gave. My mother's mask slipped. You got married, had children, and said nothing. Do you know how that felt? Yes, I said. It felt like consequences. They didn't like that. But they didn't argue. When the check came, they insisted on paying, still clinging to rituals that meant something long before they stopped meaning anything at all. I let them. We walked out. They hovered, waiting for a goodbye they hadn't earned. All I said was, take care. And I meant it without bitterness, just boundaries. The group didn't go out anywhere fancy this time. No restaurants, no performance of normal. Walter and Sandra opened their home, the same home that held half my childhood comfort. And everybody showed up. The whole friend group, kids running around, music low. The smell of Sandra's cooking drifting through every room. It felt like stepping back into a world that had grown with me, not without me. They hugged me, talked trash, passed plates around like offerings, checked in without asking too many questions. Walter pulled me aside in the kitchen. You handled yourself well, he said quietly. You handled her well too. I nodded. I'm not here to excuse nothing, just to make sure she's not alone. That's why we respect you, he answered. None of us fumbled when you left. You stayed connected even when you were gone. This ain't any different. Later, we all stepped outside, the usual circle, leaning on each other without saying that's what we were doing. They told me they were proud of the man I'd become. I told them I always felt like I still belonged here because they never let me drift too far. When it was time to leave, the goodbyes weren't dramatic. Just, safe flight. Love you, bro. Keep us posted. Tell the kids we said hi. A see you later, not a farewell. Exactly the kind of ending I needed. Marcus. I made one last stop before the airport, Marcus's office, the same place my whole second life had begun. I told him about everything, Taylor, Mastro's, the friend group, the hard words, the healing ones too. He listened the way he always listens, fully, without a single wasted movement. When I finally grabbed my bag and reached for the door, he spoke. Don't worry about the loose ends. I hesitated. Marcus. He cut me off with a soft shake of his head. I'll handle everything. Simple. Final. Certain. Something in me loosened, like a knot that had been waiting years for the right hands. Last look before heading home. On the drive to LAX, the city looked different. Not the place I escaped, not the place I resented, not the place that tried to shrink me, just a place I passed through on my way to becoming myself. I boarded my flight knowing Taylor would face what she needed to face, and that I could love her without rescuing her. I boarded knowing I had said everything 22-year-old me never got to say, and left nothing lingering in my throat. I boarded knowing my true family, my wife, my children, the life I built from scratch, was waiting in Nevada, and when the wheels lifted off the ground, I didn't feel torn. I felt whole.
Epilogue. Reggie sat alone in his barbershop a month after Taylor pled guilty, sweeping hair that wasn't even there. Habit, more than anything. The shop had been repaired, repainted, reopened. The mirrors gleamed again. The regulars had come back. The laughter had come back. But Reggie hadn't really settled back into himself. Every time the bell over the door jingled, he still braced. Not flinching, not scared, just aware. Being the wrong target changes a man in a way therapy can't always catch. He was closing up for the night when he saw it. A plain envelope thin, tucked halfway under the shop door. No return address, no stamps. Someone put it there by hand. Reggie locked the door before he picked it up. Inside was a single photograph, his barbershop, taken some time before the chaos. Clean windows, fresh paint, people inside laughing. A normal day. On the back typed, "Wrong place, wrong target." His stomach dropped. He reached back into the envelope and found a second item, a neat banded stack of cash. He didn't have to count it to know it was a lot, but he did anyway. $100,000. Reggie sat down hard in his chair. This wasn't an apology. This wasn't a threat. This was someone correcting their mistake and letting him know the mistake wouldn't happen again. And that realization made his skin run hot and cold at the same time, because he had been 2 steps away from disappearing behind somebody else's mess, and they were calm enough to send an envelope like they were returning a library book. He grabbed his phone and did the only thing that made sense. He called Marcus. Marcus picked up on the first ring, voice steady like he already knew why Reggie was calling. Reggie told him about the envelope, the picture, the money, the note. There was a beat of silence before Marcus spoke. He didn't sound surprised. He didn't sound shaken, just resolute. Marcus told him to take the money, move forward, and stay far, far out of whatever this was. That last part wasn't advice. It was instruction. Reggie didn't argue. Because if he was being honest, the only reason he'd slept even halfway decent since the attack was because Marcus had stepped in, fixed what could be fixed, and cleaned what could be cleaned. Not just the shop, the fear. After they hung up, Reggie sat a while staring at the picture again. Wrong place, wrong target. A strange comfort washed over him. He wasn't meant to be a casualty. He just got grazed by someone else's war. And now whoever ran that war wanted him to know that chapter was closed. He slipped the money back into the envelope, then folded the note carefully and put it in his wallet. He closed the shop, turned off the lights, and locked the door. His life would go on. He would cut hair. He would laugh with his customers. He would smile again. But he would never forget how close he came to being erased over something that had absolutely nothing to do with him. The hidden figure. A small desk illuminated by a single warm lamp. A sheet of paper sits at the center, loose ends across the top. Under it, several names. He draws a quiet line through one. Reggie, closed. He sets the pen down with precision. On the table beside him sits a phone. It buzzes once. A message appears. Movement on Carter. Someone else is watching him. He exhales lightly, almost thoughtful. Not irritated, not alarmed, just adjusting calculations. Because he has rules, he has a philosophy, and he lives by it. People get emotional. People drift off course. People break things without meaning to. He avoids people, prefers systems, patterns, stability. Taylor disrupted a pattern. Dante broke a rule. Brian triggered a chain reaction. The barbershop was collateral from someone else's panic. He doesn't tolerate panic. He picks up a thin folder. The text sender didn't name who spotted movement or what kind of movement, but he already knows the pattern they're referring to. He taps the folder once with his finger. We don't see what's inside, and we only see the corner. A blurred logo, a hint of blue and gold coloring, a seal that looks vaguely municipal. A new node, a new thread, a new evaluation. He lifts his pen slowly. A single line, monitor. Then softly, almost like a promise to himself or a rule being rewritten in real time. Then we adjust. Fade out. You've been listening to Pen and Perspective. If it sat in your spirit, let it linger. If it stirred something in you, don't ignore it. I'm Miana DK, and before I put my pen down, tell me, whose perspective should I sit with next?